Hi, and welcome to the Global Professionals in Portugal show. My name is Cordelia, and in this show, we talk to founders, workers, team members, and other people who have taken their businesses and either launched them in another country and run them from Portugal, or maybe they've launched them here in Portugal. And today's guest is Christy Peters, and she and her family have been living in Portugal since the beginning of 2023. She and her husband have a construction company, a mold remediation and water mitigation company, and then they also have some separate businesses. They're very entrepreneurial, so I'm excited to have her on as a guest. Christy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Cordelia, for having me. I'm very excited to speak with you and other people who are making this transition as we have.
Can you tell me where you are in Portugal and what's going on there?
Sure. So we live in Coimbra, Portugal, which is the third largest city in the country. It is a university city, so we are pretty central in the country. We're about 2 hours from Lisbon by train and about an hour from Porto by train.
Okay. I've heard so many great things about Coimbra, some of them from you, about what a great place it is to live. You already had your business before you moved here, right? So Can you tell me a little bit about how you kind of keep working from here, what that's like for you?
Yes, definitely. So as you said, we've been here only since the early 2023. So we are still in the process of setting our businesses up properly to make sure we're adhering to Portuguese law, and also so that we don't make some missteps. I actually have some friends who also had businesses here, and it has been quite a learning experience for them. And we are trying to make sure we don't bump our heads, so to speak. So right now, where we are in businesses, we actually have a roster of clients who are waiting for us to launch ourselves here. We have been in business since 2014 as our water mitigation and mold remediation company since 2008 for our construction businesses. And then our individual businesses, I have a home-based bakery, which is what I'm really focusing on here. I came here to kind of find my joy. I love construction, but I want to do things that also feed my passion. My baking business, I started 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago during the pandemic. And I recently won a business fellowship where I went to Spain for a month to build that business here in the EU. So that's where I am right now, really in the launching phase at this.
I love that you guys are starting to work. You're setting up to work in Portugal because, first of all, mold remediation, definitely a demand for that here.
Yes, for sure. we had a client list before we ever landed from the
That's
planes.
Awesome. And so can you tell me a little bit about that process? I assume you have sort of whatever, an S Corp or an LLC in the US, but now you're figuring out what you need to do here.
Exactly.
Without getting too technical because visa things change and whatever, but can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Exactly. So that is part of it. We do still have an S corp in the States. We were incorporated as an LLC and then opted, without getting to tax implications, but opted to be treated as an S corp. And so here in Portugal, it's a little bit different. When you register a business here, you have to, by law, have an accountant. Like, of course, you should have an accountant. People in the States should have an accountant, but not everyone does. But
Right.
but here,
Yes.
here legally, it is a must. So if you're I would say for budding entrepreneurs, we already an established company, but for those who are just starting a business, that is something for you to consider because that accountant has to be on your books. So depending on what they charge here, a Portuguese accountant can range from €100 a month to €300 a month. That is a cost every month. So once you tell the Portuguese government you want to register this entity as a business, the clock starts. And so so that's very important to know because if you haven't even tested your product yet to see if there's a demand for it and you tell the Portuguese government, hey, I'm a business, they're going to say, well, you need to pay as a business and you need to follow the law as a business. So I know that has tripped some people up previously because they didn't understand that those costs were going to be incurred before they actually started making money, and so that is one of the things that we're making sure that we have our accountant in place, that we have our attorney in place, because that's also a must for having your legal representation here. And then the way you hire employees here is different than in the States. Like here, you have to pay for your employees to have lunch. So you can literally feed them lunch, which is great if you're a restaurant or what have you. they can eat lunch at your establishment. But if not, my understanding is that most employers here, what they do is they provide them a debit card. And so the debit card has to be equal to the amount of money it would cost. I forget what the per diem is for them to eat lunch per day, because the thought process is they're working for you. They shouldn't be spending it's different than, again, make sure you understand this is a different culture.
Right.
The culture is that if someone's working for you, that cost should not really be coming out of their wages. That should be something you provide as an employer. So I forget, I think the last time we had talked to our accountant and attorney, it was like 130 euros, something like that a month. So that is an additional cost. If you say, hey, if you register with the Portuguese government and say, I have an employee, then they're going to say, well, that employee needs to be getting this per month from you. And then there's also Social Security to be considered. And here employees get an additional month's salary without working for an additional month, because that is basically holiday pay. I mean, I think they call it like the 13th month or the 13th.
Oh yeah, they do that in other countries too. I know people who work with like virtual assistants from the Philippines. That's a thing in the Philippines too, is the 13th month. Yep.
Exactly. So I think what you're doing, your platform is really important, because we as fellow entrepreneurs, we need to have a forum like this so that we can discuss these things. Because you might think you're doing the right thing based on your history of business in the States, but the way business is conducted here is different, and those things can cost you. You know, you can be failing before you even got started if you don't know what these upfront costs are. So that is why we're kind of taking our time. We've been consulting with our accountant, consulting with our attorney, making sure we understand the cost implications, making sure that it makes sense for us to do this and what that looks like as far as a capital outlay before we actually start making revenue. So that's where we are right now, is setting up structurally correct.
Anyway, so you guys are actually still running your construction and mold remediation company in the US though, right?
Well, we put it on hold while we settled in, because it was very difficult for us. You know, we have a house, and we actually moved my mother-in-law here and my sister-in-law here. And so doing all of those things took time, and we knew we could not focus on that. So we are we set the timeline for the new year for January 2024 for us to actually get back to work, so to speak.
Okay, very cool. So you took a year off. Or more, probably because of the move, right? You probably took off a little before.
Pretty much so, because we came here in July of 2022 for the 3 months. You know, you can be here 3 months, visa free, kind of, so to speak. And so we took that opportunity to find our living space, our home, to set up our bank accounts and all of that stuff. So yeah, I'd say probably really since the summer of 2022, we've kind of been on pause, which has been really helpful for us, because we needed to focus on this process.
That's awesome. So
week of heart.
So you've actually you took some time off. So are you going to reopen in the US or just focus in Portugal?
No, we just came to that decision ourselves, that we are going to only focus for the mold remediation and construction. We will only focus on Portugal right now. As I said, we have companies, and my husband has a business that he will run exclusively in the States, and so he's going to focus on that in the States. And I won't be doing that because I have other entities here, and our team would be divided. So no, we won't do the construction company in the States. So that's, he will continue in the States.
And now you also bake cakes, which you said is your passion, right?
But my niche really is making cupcakes and other baked goods with alcohol. So they are decidedly adult treats. Yeah, they have tequila, bourbon, rum, you know, all kinds of things. So that is my focus. And I started doing it as a hobby really during COVID. And then I found I was selling out by just putting a post on Facebook, telling my neighbors and friends, and before people were knocking on the door, like, yeah, cupcakes, and I can get a little tipsy. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. So well, you know, getting good quality baked goods in general is, especially, I mean, like the food here in Portugal is amazing.
Yes.
But if you're used to a certain kind of sweet dessert,
exactly,
you know, like cupcakes are really not a thing here.
No, there's a dearth of American style baked goods. Yeah.
Right, which is fine. I mean, Portuguese baked goods are amazing, and
They are.
so I love all the baked goods from all the countries. I don't discriminate against any baked goods.
The
I'm an
same.
all baked goods
Sugar.
girl, but like chocolate chip cookies,
Yeah.
cupcakes, like those are definitely not, and even like a traditional sheet cake that we would consider traditional, it's just really
Yeah.
not done here.
Exactly. And that was why I decided to kind of focus on that. Again, I'm very passionate about it. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm also very good at it.
I'm sure
And
you are, yeah.
and also because there was a niche to be filled,
Hmm.
there isn't that. And I had, again, the beauty of us having an immigrant expat, whatever you want to call us, community is that we talk about these things. And so many people are like, I miss cupcakes, I miss cake, I miss American style cake, the dense cake. Here we have many Portuguese pastries, that's egg heavy, nata cream heavy,
Yep.
but not a traditional, crumb kind of cake,
Yep.
a pound cake or anything like that. So I thought, well, hey, there's a market for that, and of course I can sell it to other fellow immigrants, but also introduce it to the Portuguese because people
Mhm.
like to experience things from other places. And I also have a captive audience. I have 20,000 university students here. They like sweets and they like to drink. Why not give them both? And
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. So are you also waiting to kind of launch that until January, or have you already, like, how are you doing that?
I actually will do a soft launch in December for the Christmas holiday. And
Hmm.
so yeah, so my soft launch date is December 3rd or 4th. I can't remember right
Ooh,
now.
that's coming up. That's exciting.
Yeah, very much so. So I was kind of waiting to get through the business fellowship because that was really focused on my baking business.
Okay.
And now that I'm back and I've been back for a week from Spain, I'm able to focus on that and decide what kind of offerings I want to do. So it won't be a storefront at first. My thing will be home based. They have something similar like in the States. A cottage kitchen is what they call it in the
Okay.
States. Portugal has something very similar, which allows you to cook and offer goods from your home. And
Okay.
then what I ultimately want to do is have a food truck for the markets
Hmm.
here because we have festivals and markets, all day in
Yeah.
Portugal. There's not a day that the Portuguese don't like
Every
celebrating. Oh,
weekend.
Tuesday, party.
My only
Yeah.
thing is like everything happens at like late at night. Like the really good stuff, even the festivals that start during the day, all the local people are like, "Oh, don't even show up before 9."
No, not at
Nothing
all.
good happens until, and really it's like 11, and
True.
I'm like propping my eyelids open with, with toothpicks at that time of night. So that's been kind of a challenge, but definitely no lack of things to do.
Yeah, we have that in common here for sure.
So now your fellowship that you just got, was that for like how to be a baker, or was that just how to do business in the EU? What was that about?
It was how to do business in the EU, and I hope this is okay on your forum. I'm going to do a shameless plug for the program. It's
Awesome.
called
I
the
want to do it.
Yeah, I think you would be a fabulous candidate. It's called The Break, and it's for women entrepreneurs who are based in the EU. You must be a resident, so you have to have your residency already approved. So those who are
Okay.
waiting for
I have
stuff,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it wouldn't be open to you. But once you have your residency card, you are free to apply. And so what they were looking for was women from all over the EU who had established businesses, but they couldn't be more than 3 years old. Your business couldn't be more than 3 years old.
Oh,
And
okay.
so it was pretty much a mentorship. It was an immersive experience. They ended up selecting 360 of us out of a couple of thousand, I believe, and they flew us to Madrid. This was an all expense paid fellowship, so it was significant investment on the part of the EU. So I feel very fortunate to participate. The organization got 10 million euro for this program. So they flew us to Madrid, and then from there we were broken up into groups of 10 to 15 women and dispersed throughout Spain. So some of us ended up, yeah, some of us, now some of the really lucky ones ended up going to like the Canary Islands and Sevilla and Barcelona and Ibiza. I was in Galicia, or Galicia as it's commonly known. So I was on the most western coast
Mhm.
of Spain. And so in that time, they paired us with different mentors. We were paired with a local group who was having an economic challenge, and our focus was to help them address whether it be like rural depopulation,
Mm-hmm.
what we were talking about, teaching trades, making that an alternative, viable alternative, so that the youth would stop fleeing, just like Portugal is experiencing a lot of their youth going to other
Yeah.
countries, make more money. So are many of the countries in the EU finding
Mm-hmm.
that kind of brain drain. And so it was great. Not only did we get to focus on our individual businesses, we got to help whatever the local entity that we were paired with to address their economic concerns too. And so it was a 1 month program. We were there for 28 days, I believe. Again, they put us up in an apartment, and every day we had something to do. So it was addressing our marketing plan, addressing our business plan. Um, if you were already established, like some of us were for 3 years or so, it was, how are you using social media to your best advantage? Do you understand how that works? Can we pair you with a social media professional? And so it was really great to have that experience. And so I just returned a week ago from that. So it was they tried to pair you up with people who were in similar kind of businesses, but
Okay.
my group, I only had two other bakers in my group. The rest of the women were very disparate as far as career coaches. Some were in tech, had really good tech companies, a biking company, cycling company, very, very successful women. And so it was a great
So
experience.
cool. I
Yeah, it
love
was,
that. Well, maybe you can share the link and I'll put it in the description so people can
yeah,
check that out. Um, okay.
that would be wonderful. But
Can you tell me a little bit about where you moved from? Where
sure,
you came from before you were here?
sure. So I am originally a Jersey girl, Jersey girl through and through.
Oh, I'm
But
from Philly.
so we are right by each other,
The
neighbors.
neighbors. Yeah.
I lived in South Jersey for a time, went to boarding school in Hightstown, so not far from Philly. But where we moved from was Atlanta. I lived in
Hmm.
Atlanta for 20 plus years. Never thought I would be there that long. But I ended up going to Atlanta for college, graduated, never moved away. Um, Ended up marrying and having a child. And so it was very good family wise to raise
Hmm.
a child in the South. But it never felt like home to me ever in my 20 plus years. No shade to Atlanta. Atlanta was good to me, but it just didn't feel like home.
Hmm.
And I think part of it too was, it sounds trivial, but because it was landlocked, it wasn't until my daughter started looking at colleges and we were visiting. She ended up going to Boston University, but when we were visiting Boston and Georgetown and everything, I realized like how much I missed the water. And even
Hmm.
though Atlanta has the Chattahoochee, very it's not close and it's not central to the city, so
No.
it feels very, very distant. And I personally feel like water is restorative, and so I said I would never not be near water again, and thus Portugal with 300 and some plus miles of coastline. But at the time it was very good for us, and we had all the boom until 2008. 2008 was kind of rough, um,
Mm.
for business, especially in construction. And I'm also a licensed real estate broker. So you asked me about other businesses. I do many things, Cordelia.
Yeah.
I have a
You're
real
a
estate.
woman of many trades. Yes, I got you.
I
That's so cool.
Yeah, I've been a licensed real estate broker for 21 years, and so we
Okay.
also have, I say we, but it's me. I have a real estate brokerage company as well.
Okay.
So yeah, especially that was very helpful. And my specialty is commercial real estate. So I helped corporations identify retail, office, and call center, data center space oftentimes. And I probably will do something similar, at least consulting. My former companies, both of them are
Hmm.
here in Portugal as well. And I've had some conversations, so I'll probably end up doing that too, as well.
Okay. What are you kind of looking forward to about working from Portugal?
Well, the first thing I'm looking forward to working in Portugal is actually to be add to the economy.
Hmm.
Portugal has issues with wages. They're having issues with labor. People want opportunity. And I also think that because of what we're doing, there's a ton of construction happening in Portugal as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great opportunity. It not just for me as a businesswoman, but as a person, it speaks to my heart to see young people that hopefully we can train, that we can help them be economically stable, and address some of the labor shortage here in the country. So I am very much looking forward to that and learning how construction is done here. Construction is different here, and in the States we do stick built construction. Here it's concrete.
Yeah,
They
I noticed.
yeah,
Like
it's a big difference.
I couldn't even figure out. I was asking, I'm like, how do you hang up pictures? Because there's no studs in the wall.
It's very difficult as someone who lives in a very old house here. I have a beautiful house, but it's an old house, um, recently remodeled. But we have plaster, and that is not very conducive to, to hanging pictures. Also, I think Portugal, for those of us who are moving or who have moved, it is a wonderful opportunity. I think their economy is on the cusp. And I hate when people are like, "Is it a developing nation?" No, it's not developing. The economy is emerging. The economy is developing. We have to remember this is a country that is 50 something years out of dictatorship. That's not very long. So being able to participate in, although I have mixed feelings, I won't get into that on your show about hypercapitalism. But to have a economy where people are able to freely conduct business, it's kind of new without the austerity of the government over their shoulder. And so I think we're at a really unique point of being able to participate in that economy as it emerges and to be influential in it and also to learn as we do it. So I think for those of us who are new business owners or established business owners and new to doing business here, it's a great opportunity right now. And to find other partners as well,
Yeah,
Portuguese and immigrant partners. I'm very
absolutely.
forward to immersing, we're still learning the language. So I think being in business is also immersive to help me refine, sharpen my language skills because I will go for citizenship in 5 years. So,
hmm
yeah.
What are some cultural differences that you have noticed that have impacted you, and how have you adapted?
Culturally, I understand the Portuguese are very warm, very sincere. I feel very welcomed, but they are kind of insular. And so it takes time to break through those initial deep barriers. So I won't say it's a worry, but it is something I know we will have to work at being trusted by Portuguese customers because
Mhm.
it is not something they do naturally. The people they know, they've known for a very long time. They tend not to move very often. And so I think for business, although I know we'll have quite a clientele in the expat community, getting those same Portuguese clients to invite us in and to trust us, I think is kind of a challenge. And especially having the language barrier, which is why we've been working so diligently on our Portuguese, because I think number one, it's respectful to speak to
Mhm.
someone in their language. We are guests, here in this country, hoping to become citizens, but not as of yet. And so, those I wouldn't say concern, but it is something that I realize has to be overcome is the language barrier and also the cultural aspect of it all. The Portuguese are, again, very warm. I have felt very welcome since the first day I ever visited Portugal. But I do see it takes time to get into like the trusted circle.
Have a business that is like maybe where maybe most of your clients are in another country, it is easy to stay in your bubble
Yeah.
or to try to just do a business for immigrants or expats or whatever you want to call them. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I do think that, it's a goal that we share of trying to be integrate into the place we live and not just sort of live here separate lives, which is what some people
Yeah.
choose to do that.
Well, and
So
as an entrepreneur, wouldn't you like to expand your pool of potential clients? So, yes, you may be able to have some clients that are immigrants or expats, whatever people like to term themselves these days. But wouldn't it be great to expand that? And especially if the only effort it requires is to be culturally sensitive to someone else. I notice, like, I tell friends that come here, you dare not go into a store and just say, hey, where's the such and such? You say good morning, bom dia, boa tarde, bon nuit, hopefully ask them stash, how are you, what have you. And then you conduct your business. So I think wherever you're going, but because we're talking about Portugal specifically, to know those nuances, it is considered very rude to just start a conversation without a greeting.
mhm.
And even though that's something we may do in the States, like, hey, can you show me where the red shirt is? You would not really do that. Or if you people do it, but you'll kind of get a side eye like rude American. The rude Americans.
What are some of your lessons learned?
Well, my lessons learned are definitely tax implications.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. Yep.
Tax implications. Have a Portuguese attorney, a Portuguese accountant and an American accountant if you're coming from America, to figure out what that means. If most of your income is earned in the States, great, but there's still something to be discussed. It is very important to understand how the tax situation in your new home country will impact your business, or where you're earning your revenue impacts your business. So that was a consideration for us too in taking our time. I would have loved to, I'm very much a businesswoman. I would have loved to hit the ground running, but I did not want to stumble and do something improper because of my desire to go fast, So
Right.
we took. The other thing I would say is legally, the legal system here is different. Untangling a business here is different. I would definitely caution people who are new entrepreneurs to Portugal. My understanding is dissolving a business here is not as simple as it is in the States. So you should have some type of professional consultant to speak with. And I'm not saying someone who's going to charge you thousands of dollars. There are plenty of people who are above board, have integrity, that do this, and that you should seek out. Again, Cordelia, why I think your platform is going to be a game changer is because it could be a resource for those of us who have done it or are doing it, to refer you to someone that's trusted, that you can speak to, because these things are different. They're very different from us. We take entrepreneurship is kind of in the blood, the veins of Americans, it's very common for us. Here, it's not as common. And because the tax burden is very heavy on people who are business owners, I don't want to speak out of turn. My understanding from Portuguese friends is that it can be a deterrent, because of the tax situation when it comes to corporations. So I would say understanding the legal and tax implications is the most important.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. All of Christie's websites and contact information are going to be below, and please join our community. We're on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. And thank you so much for being here, Christy.
Thank you. I feel very honored to be a guest, and thank you for having me and allowing me to share and learn as well.
Awesome.